fire responded to every return. Gauff's confidence gradually eroded as her rhythm broke. With each rally, the throng increased, their incredulity building into a shout. And silence gave way to commotion when the last ball crossed the finish line. The past had recently been altered. However, beneath that 58-minute masterpiece is a tale of rivalry, pressure, and covert retaliation that nobody anticipated. Because supremacy isn't always about power. The goal is to disprove everyone. There was quiet prior to the eruption. Just before the game started, there was an odd, unsettling silence throughout the arena. The kind of quiet that seems to be a warning. Everyone was familiar with Coco Gauff, the world-conquering adolescent prodigy who was a Grand Slam winner, a veteran, and a representative of the sport's future generation. First set breakdown carried the burden of expectation with ease. And on the other side of the net stood Alexandra Eala, composed and serene, unknown to some but undervalued by many. The headline did not feature her. She wasn't the most popular. However, she was the unanticipated storm. I had been quietly constructing something for months. Extended exercises under the scorching sun. Studying match recordings late at night. She refused to allow moments of uncertainty to prevail. Her home country is the Philippines, where tennis is a passion but not a guarantee. Every setback feels personal, and every success feels like a revolt. Eala had been informed from the start that players from her region of the world don't succeed. Too small a stage, too far away, and too few resources. However, she didn't want to rise to the top and disprove them. She felt she belonged there, which is why she wanted it. She now stood opposite from the lady who represented everything she was told she couldn't be on this court in the dazzling lights. Coco Gauff is a warrior on the court, the face of contemporary tennis, the sweetheart of endorsements, and the fan favorite. It was not expected that the game would be close. One-sided betting lines were used. When I went to the baseline for her warm-up, I noticed something in her eyes, a subtle kind of rage, despite the commentators' predictions that she would win easily. She wasn't present to take part. She was there to assume control. Her coach said something only she could hear in the corner of her team. Disregard her identity. Recall your identity. It wasn't merely counsel. The crowd whispered, agitated, waiting for Gauff's distinctive energy to illuminate the court. It was ignition. Cameras flashed, reporters wrote in their notes. However, the sound cracked like thunder when Eala delivered her first serve, fast, clean, right on the edge. Even Gauff appeared a little taken aback. Nobody was ready to believe the story that was revealed in that first game. Eala was not responding to Gauff's cadence. It was dictated by her. Each rally was measured. Every action is intentional. And the tension started to change in a matter of minutes. The audience, accustomed to applauding Gauff's supremacy, began to notice something strange. Uncertainty. Fans of the season recognized the expression in Eala's eyes. Not nerves, not haughtiness, just such unadulterated concentration that it appeared nearly icy. The narrative of every instance in which she had been disregarded and every key turning point competition she participated in as simply another name was contained in that emphasis. It was more than just a match. It was an assertion. The audience still had hope for a comeback when the first set got underway. With Gauff, they always did. Her legend was her tenacity. However, there was a whisper in the air that got louder with each point. This girl, who is she? Eala's shots had become statements by the time she broke serve for the first time. There were gasps with each victory. Every rally concluded with incredulity. She was not grinning. She wasn't having a party. She was methodical, laser-focused, and locked in. The fiery and ferocious Coco Gauff appeared human all of a sudden. Additionally, the balance of women's tennis seemed to be shifting throughout that first 30 minutes. The quiet that preceded the storm started to wane. The eruption was on its way. There was just one rally at first. 41 defiant shots. Momentum is defined by this type of rally. The type that challenges everything you believe to be true. Coco Gauff had recently lost her serve. In an attempt to slow down the fading rhythm, she stood at the baseline and spun her racket. Alexandra's gaze was fixed on her from across the internet. Just that unwavering fire, without any emotion or smile. The initial serve was delivered forcefully. Gauff's signature strength, a blur in the distance. Eala successfully caught it deep to the backhand. The cross-court line, forehand, backhand, and back and forth came next. Neither was retreating. After every exchange, the audience gasped, as the tempo quickened with each shot. Then it took place. Ellis moved in, saw the angle, and fired a forehand down the line with such intensity that it painted the baseline's edge. The tension was broken by the umpire's call. Allah is the game. The game of golf froze. Something shattered in the air as the crowd erupted. Not only did that point win a game, everything was altered by it. Coco appeared uncertain for the first time during the game. She quickly glanced at her box in an attempt to find comfort. Her instructor gave a slow applaud, but it was clear from his demeanor. This was not intended to occur. Her face was unreadable as I carefully made my way to her chair and took a sip of water. Commentators attempted to make sense of it. One said, "Maybe Gauff's adjusting. Eala is acting irrationally." They were unaware that this was not a crowd reaction and atmosphere. Lucky streak, but another whispered. It was a tactic. Eala had studied golf. She was aware of the locations of the pressure points. She didn't always choose the winners. She waited until Gauff had little room to breathe, making mistakes and tightening the angles. The crowd, which was primarily present for Gauff, started to become agitated. Gasps, murmurs, and even apprehensive cheers. After Eala's winners won the first set 4-1, a quick exchange completely altered the mood. Gauff yelled in exasperation after missing a standard backhand and slammed the ball into the net post. The arena grew silent when the umpire issued a warning. Eala remained silent. She simply moved to the baseline after turning away and adjusting her wristband. Because it was no longer merely competence, that moment revealed to the world who was in charge. It was psychology. Gauff's facial expressions all contributed to Eala's serenity. Alex grew colder the more Coco attempted to energize herself. It was a startling contrast. One player is controlling time, while the other is chasing rhythm. The following games went by quickly. Eala's retaliations were harsh, accurate, and nearly surgical. She moved effortlessly in court. The audience was shocked when she broke for 51. People began using their phones to record what appeared to be history happening in real time. Is this actually taking place? Near the first row, one fan yelled. The story had drastically changed by the time the first set concluded in 61. Words like overpowering thundering energy were increasingly being used by commentators. Despite knowing that the battle was not yet over, she never once smiled. Not till the very end of final moments. Gauff attempted to restart during the second set. Momentum is an odd thing, but deep breaths, a slower tempo, and a few strong serves can all help. It is difficult for it to return after it has shifted. And the spark had already become fire in Eala's eyes. Gauff's annoyance flared up once more by the fourth game. A line call was questioned by her. Eala kissed the edge with her forehand. "Go!" Gauff yelled. The umpire made the decision. Tension was in the air as the crowd jeered. Eala just nodded and got ready to serve once more. The illusion was totally shattered at that time. This wasn't a coincidence. This was dominance. Unstoppable, systematic, and pure. The audience rose once more, half in shock and half in appreciation, when I held serve with an ace down the tee. One game at a time, one statement at a time, she was altering the narrative in real time. Because the young Manila woman wasn't competing against Coco Gauff at that precise moment. What this means for the future, she was fighting every uncertainty that had ever been placed in her path. And she appeared to be winning for the first time. The atmosphere in the arena had drastically altered at the beginning of the second set. What had started out as a goth-friendly group had evolved into something else entirely. Something crazy, erratic, and electrifying. After each point, the sound of incredulity reverberated. The collective idea, "This can't be happening," was practically audible. Eala was furious and had already broken serve once more. Her self-assurance had given way to control, which was now dangerous. It was supremacy in silence. Every motion felt deliberate. Each rally concluded precisely. She didn't yell, pump her fist, or celebrate. She just strolled back to the baseline after turning and adjusting her cap. The crowd erupted even louder because of the calmness and silence. After a rare victory, Coco Gauff finally let out a yell at 2 Nero. In an attempt to capitalize on the commotion, she waved her hands in the direction of the stands. Cheers, chants, energy was the audience's response. Eala didn't flinch even though it seemed like the tide may flip for a brief period. She served wide on the very next point, drew the golf off the court, and ended with a clean forehand into the open area. 9 seconds passed during the rally. The audience let out a gasp. Then a segment in the higher rows began to chant, albeit softly at first. Allah. It became boisterous in the stands as it became apparent that the crowd was no longer solely hers, and it began to decline with each point dropped. Eala responded with something sharper, quicker, and crueler each time she attempted to rally. In the middle of the game, social media started to buzz. Videos of Gauff's failed backhands and Eala's accurate forehands were all over X and TikTok. This girl, who is she? A single tweet was read. Another Eala is acting as though she has something to prove, and whoa, she's succeeding. Ya loves golf was popular by the halfway point of the second set. Throughout the telecast, shocked commentators muttered, "This is one of the most dominant performances we've seen against Coco Gauff in years." The tension was no longer limited to the court. It was worldwide. Gauff double faulted at 4:1. She tossed back her head, clearly frustrated, as the crowd moaned. Elcom has served again after bouncing the ball 3 times. One more ace. The crowd erupted. Cameras swept across people's faces. Some were surprised, some were applauding. Eala's team remained silent, folded their hands, and watched her every move in the player box. They were aware of what lay ahead. The last game comes next. To remain